On this episode of Doing the Most, we're going to make a sort of clone recipe for Viking Blod mead. Viking Blod is one of the introductory meads that a lot of new mead drinkers try. Another common brand people pick up is called Chaucer's. It's very sweet, almost cloyingly so. People seem to generally really like Viking Blod, and I've seen a lot of clone recipes of it online, on homebrewing forums, and on Reddit, and I wanted to make my own variation made from stuff that you can just find at your local grocery store. The idea being that this would be a great first mead for very beginner mazers to make. So if this is your first time making mead, hopefully you can follow along with this recipe, pick up the ingredients locally, and get started in a 5-gallon batch. My brew venture for this mead started out at Walmart. I was hoping I could get everything there. I picked up 5 gallons of spring water and 15 pounds of pure and simple honey, which is just a plain grade A honey. We also got some cherry berry blend with tart cherries. Somehow I didn't capture footage of us grabbing this out of the freezer section, but we got 2 3-pound bags of that. And then I had to jump over to another grocery store to get the hibiscus because they didn't have it in the Hispanic section at the Walmart I was at, but they had plenty of it at this grocery store. Not really knowing how strong this hibiscus was, I just opted to buy the whole store out. So I picked up 20 ounces. Initially, I'm only going to use 12. So that's it. It's pretty simple. Honey, water, yeast, berries, and hibiscus. So instead of throwing the hibiscus directly into primary, I decided to make a hibiscus tea instead. So what I did was I put 6 ounces of hibiscus in each of these small containers, and between the two, I had about 1.5 gallons of water that I added. Brought that up to a boil, and then as soon as it hit boil, cut the heat and let it steep for 30 minutes. The hope here is that we'll extract plenty of that kind of tannic, herbal quality of the hibiscus without pulling out so much of the bitter flavors. Since we're doing this over the stove instead of in primary, it gives us a little bit more control. Then I've got those other 8 ounces of hibiscus. If needed, we can add some back later. While our tea was coming up to a boil and a steep, I decided to go ahead and get the honey and some of the water into our fermenting bucket. Because we're using fruit, I opted for a bucket over a carboy just for ease of access. It's always wise to rinse out your honey containers and dump that honey water into your fermenter. Waste not, want not. And then we opened up our bags of frozen and thawed berries. What's great about these is they're frozen at the peak of freshness, and then all those cell walls are broken down by the ice crystals that form, so your fruit's nice and mushy for good extraction in your brew. Make sure you get all the leftover juices out of there. And then with your mash paddle, stir like crazy. This is so incredibly syrupy at this stage, so it took many, many minutes of stirring to really ensure that everything was made homogeneous in here. Now you could skip this step, but I opted to add some pectic enzyme to help further break down the fruit. Since we're going to have about 5 gallons of liquid volume in here, I went with a whole tablespoon of pectic enzyme. That will help us get some better extraction out of that fruit. After your 30-minute steep of your hibiscus tea is done, you're going to bring it over. And I use these pots because they have built-in steamer baskets, which allows me to strain directly over the pot. But alternatively, you could just pour these through a colander. The idea is to get all those solids out of there before you add your hibiscus tea into your must. And you can see by the foam in the bucket that the pectic enzyme and the natural yeasts on the fruit are already starting to go to work. But we're going to pitch in some wine yeast and that will take over the fermentation. Now that the hibiscus tea is in, we will top up with the rest of our water and continue stirring. Stir, 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 stir. Now, I recommend typically for beginner brewers to use EC1118. You can check out my blog for more information. I'm going to use D47, which is also a pretty hardcore yeast. D47 will leave some fruitier flavors and esters in there, won't have so much of that gassing off during fermentation, and it will help accentuate the honey in the fruit a little bit better. EC1118 would work just fine, but it is pretty aggressive and tends to off-gas some of those more delicate flavors. Just using a sanitized chopstick to mix in my yeast. And as usual, I'm going to ferment this semi-open by placing a sanitized paper towel over the bung and an upturned coffee mug on top of that as a sort of airlock. And we're going to allow this to ferment out for the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then it should be fermented dry. Here it is a few hours later after everything came to room temperature. Our gravity was just over 1.1. And every few days, you're going to need to punch that fruit cap down. The fruit is really in here to contribute color more than it is flavor, but it will also give some good acidity to the must. What we're really going for is a nice, bright, poppy red color. Here it is a few days later. You can see the fruit has really started to break down and the color on this is really starting to get beautiful. So since I'm encouraging people to brew this along with me, I am going to cut the video off here and I will do another update video when I get to the next phase of this fermentation, which should be racking it off into secondary. So I hope you'll go to the grocery store, pick up some ingredients and get this brewing along with me, and then we can just follow along together as we take this thing through to completion. Thanks for watching. Check out our blog and our Instagram and Pinterest for more from Doing the Most, and thanks for stopping by.